Hallo und herzlich willkommen hier von der Gamescom 2019. Ich freue mich sehr, dass ich euch auch endlich hier von dieser Bühne begrüßen darf. Und wir haben großen und hohen Besuch und den möchte ich nicht warten lassen. That's why I switch up now to English. He's the joint CEO and co-founder of CD Projekt Red, Marcin Iwiński.
Okay, pretty good pronunciation. Thank you.
Please tell me that was good. I was practicing a lot.
No, it was good. It was pretty good. Solid.
Cool. All right, Marcin, before we take a deep dive into different kind of topics, I would like to ask you, how are you doing? Have you processed that E3 madness to enjoy the next couple of days here at Gamescom?
Yeah, actually, in other words, I've recovered from the incredible E3 stress because yeah, it looks great from outside. When it's great, and it was breathtaking, as one man said. But the preparation and then the moment zero, the launch of what we've been working on, and we've been preparing for E3 for like 9 to 12 months really. So it's a huge project for us. And then you come to this show, and everyone is coming. All the big guys are coming, guns blazing. So you don't know what will happen. And then when moments like the Keanu moment on stage happen, then it's worth every second invested into working on it. So yeah, but then at the same time, you're all stressed. I mean, E3s are just blurred, things, blurred time that you don't remember much from afterwards. But it was truly amazing, and I'm really happy that the demo was great. The team did a phenomenal work, and then they got all this positive feedback and praise and expectation that's fueling them now to finish the game.
Yeah. Have you ever expected that kind of feedback, especially with the Keanu Reeves thing?
I mean, actually, I consider myself still a sane person. I would never dare expecting anything like that.
All right. We have talked a little bit about E3. How would you compare E3 to Gamescom now?
I'd say Gamescom, it's, first and foremost, Gamescom, it's a consumer show with a business part attached to it. So it is different. And it's huge regionally, but with the event last night held by Jeff Keighley, I think it's going into right direction to make the global mark. And actually, frankly speaking, we would love that, because one E3, I think there could be one more European E3, and this would be the blast. So I'm really happy with that. Having said that, E3 open up to the public, but it's 15,000 people. So from the scale of the US market, it is not much. While here with 320, 30, or hopefully maybe 50,000 people, it's just amazing celebration of games. And you can see it just looking around walking around on the public day and looking at gamers. They're so passionate that's great, because there are some shows which I will not name, but you go there and there is a mixed crowd. You see people are just they came to look at some things, but they don't know really what is here. It's pure gaming. I love it.
Yeah. So we saw a lot about Cyberpunk at E3, now at Gamescom, and I think the hype for that game have reached an absolute optimum. And that kind of hype is coupled with a lot of expectations. How do you feel? How do you handle that kind of pressure?
I mean, it's always hard, and it's intimidating, because
I can imagine that. Yeah.
Of course, the hype building function or the hype building per se doesn't come before the game. It's always the game first, the content first. So we show it, and that's the way how we hype it. We don't hype just by spending money or doing clever marketing. It's always the content speaks for itself. But we've set a certain bar, and I'll say right now we have to deliver. So until the very moment when gamers will get the games in their hands and start playing, we'll not be sure that we made it. So I'm really looking forward to that. But there's a lot of pressure and responsibility, both for what we have promised, for the studio, for the people. I think, I'm, I would say, cautiously optimistic, so to say.
All right, I assume that you're talking with your devs about that topic as well. What is their take about that?
I think, I co-manage the whole company. Adam Badowski is the head of the studio, yes, but we have discussions. We tell them what we are doing. We've showed them the whole plan of E3 and what will be happening this year, like Gamescom as well. And we keep them up to date. and then they see this. So actually, for the E3 bit, we had it organized like an evening. It was late night actually at the office. People had beers, they were cheering, they were looking at it, and then we started getting messages. Wow, it's going crazy! Wow, we couldn't believe that. So it's also something what I'm very much involved in. So our PR publishing and preparation of all that, like making sure that whatever we do internally, it's heard and has the right scale outside. So we can show it to as many gamers as possible and hopefully get them excited if the stuff that we're showing is good.
All right, I think we saw the first teaser of Cyberpunk in 2013.
Yes.
That was 7 years ago, correct me if I'm wrong?
Yes, yes.
And it is not uncommon that in AAA development the direction is getting changed over the years. Was that the case for Cyberpunk as well?
Yes, but I think this is a part of a very creative process. Like if you look like how movies are made, we actually had a discussion today about one of the movies, and the average in Hollywood is 8 years to get from the concept to the cinematic release, and it takes a lot of iteration. So, and I think actually it's good because then you can perfect it, and obviously due to the nature of games and the things that you can tweak and change, actors, characters till the very moment, it's very tempting to tweak it till the very last day or endlessly. That's why some games cannot release, but constantly trying out things and trying to make them better, but at the end, looking at it from the gamer's perspective, because you can have the best story on paper and then you start playing this quest and it feels kind of boring, or it doesn't deliver you the point. And when you add the action elements, the gunplay, the character development, just kind of feel off. So maybe you should cut the quest, or maybe you should trick it, maybe you should extend it, or maybe you should cut it in half. So there's a lot of things, and this obviously starts with shaping the world, what we did with Cyberpunk. So the first trailer, which you've mentioned, was the way we sort of we check the feel of the market for the vision, because and I was talking about it before, our plan for the CGI was that we'll have within roughly 1 week, 10 days, 1 million views. Within the first 2 weeks we had 10 million views. So we planned for 1 million. So it was like, hey, we think that if it's 1 million, Cyberpunk, it's cool.
Okay.
It's cool, it's good. Yeah. We got way above it. So it was, and back in the day, Cyberpunk wasn't that sexy it is today. Like you see, Blade Runner, Altered Carbon. Suddenly, and it's not because of us, but it's people started looking again at the Cyberpunk as a genre, as well as a concept, as something sexy, and it has its revival. So actually, we are lucky to be at this point with it.
All right, especially with changing direction and stuff like that, how do you think, or what do you think are the difficulties for, or to establish a new IP like Cyberpunk, especially in the games, in the gaming landscape we're seeing today?
I think it's really challenging thing, because not only you have to make a game, what is bloody difficult, but you have to create a world. And as gamers realize, I mean, we've always were looking for a foundation, for a base that we can start on. So in case of The Witcher, these were, genius books by Andrzej Sapkowski. So we had this world, we had this, rich characters with the background stories, with the motivation, and then we only had to make a game. And in case of The Witcher 2, it has taken us 5 long years. With Cyberpunk, we've actually bought the intellectual property from the pen and paper creator Mike Pondsmith, who's actually helping us out with the world, with the game a bit, and he's involved. So we have the father creator of Cyberpunk, the gaming system, and then it was much easier to get into the games world. But then we have these books, 40 or 50 books, so the game rules, the whole lore, a lot of feedback from players of this pen and paper, but then we had to reinvent it in the current world, because Cyberpunk, when Mike released it, was Cyberpunk 2020, what is actually next year, and it's a very different world than he thought it will be, and we had to reimagine it in the
What was that?
That was a sniper.
Are you okay?
Cool, yeah. Was special effects okay? No, I'm fine. I'm fine. Maybe that's a signal that it's just boring, you know?
No, it's totally fine. It's very interesting, actually.
Okay, guys, I can go. Don't shoot again. Yeah. So we had to reimagine it in gaming. So create our cyberpunk, because recreated it also sounds wrong. Create our cyberpunk in the gaming world for gamers. And each media has its own characteristics. Books are different, and TV series. Let's look at Game of Thrones in the books format, and let's look at the TV series. Two very different things, done well. Maybe not the last two seasons, especially the last one, which was terrible. But before it was amazing. So it was a very good example that I was using quite often. I cannot do so anymore. And then here we've spent a lot of time, and that was, I think, the most difficult process. How this world would look like in games, and why it will be cool for games.
Yeah.
Because it is not about copy paste and then we are true to the rules. And no, things from pen and paper system might not necessarily work in a computer game, interactive game. They might actually be bad, boring, or whatnot. I'm not saying they are, but it is a risk. So you have to pick the elements which you think that are cool, and then build a game on it.
Yeah.
In a nutshell.
So you have a lot happened until Cyberpunk. You've started as a Polish localization company, and then you broke into game development, Witcher 3, and now Cyberpunk 2077, which is the most eagerly awaited game today. How would you describe that kind of development of your company from back then until today?
Actually, we started as a games distribution company. So I started right out of high school.
You sold cracked PC versions.
That was even before, when there was
Okay.
no copyright law in Poland. The pirateers, sorry guys. But it wasn't illegal. That's what we learned, the games. That's what we learned, when we developed the passion for games. And then the first thing out of high school, we decided with my high school friend and the co-founder of CD Projekt with Michał let's do something about games. So CD-ROM was the new great thing.
Yeah.
We started importing games on CD-ROMs, hence the name CD Projekt, or CD Projekt as you say it in Polish. And then we started embarking on the road, initially from distribution, localization. But the dream was always to make our own games, and then Witcher 3 happened. So we actually took all the proceeds from the distribution business, and then someone invested it, quite honestly speaking, blindly a little bit, with a lot of faith and passion, but not much knowledge how to do games. Actually, we pretty well knew, how to sell games, how to generate hype, how to talk to gamers. We were and still are a gamers company, so we're picking things that were exciting for us, and it was much easier to work this way. But we didn't have a bloody clue how to develop games, so that's why Witcher 1 has taken us 5 long years.
All right. Would there be something that you would like to change if you look back? So especially with the teaser, would you have released the teaser in 2013 if you could decide again?
Yeah, definitely. It looks kind of like they could have delayed, but at the time of releasing the teaser, we honestly didn't know what kind of reception this world is getting. And you don't know things until you do them, and then they shape you. It's the only way to do things. Of course, right now we are more experienced, so we already know what kind of result we can expect.
Yeah.
And as we are well funded, because all the proceeds from games go directly to us. We self-publish, so pretty much we can invest as much as we want, reasonably, of course, into the games and what we believe will empower these games and get these games in front of as many gamers as possible. We are not talking to anyone externally. It's our company. Things like Keanu are possible because of what we have achieved in the past.
Yeah.
Yes. If you tell me that in 2012 Keanu said like, hey man, we don't have money to pay the bills for the next few months, forget about Keanu. Right now we can do it, but it makes sense, and we've also learned how to work with that on a global level.
All right. So gaming is a really fast field. And how do you think your games will be played in the future? Yesterday we've learned that Cyberpunk will be part of Google Stadia. So is this a thing that you're trying to follow in the next couple of months or even years?
I think we're always interested to see where the gaming is going, and that's what's super cool about the gaming market, because there's a lot of things happening. If you look at TV and the film industry, the most exciting thing that happened in the last 50 years was streaming.
Yeah.
And that's the big new thing. In gaming, it's new thing every few years, like substantial thing. Not to mention, the increase in the processing power, graphical power, AR, VR, you name it. Yeah, some of these things work for us, some of the things don't. But in general, it is pushing the industry forward. Like it's a constant increase of possibilities. However you use them and whatever you use, but you have a lot of things that you can pick from and then put them together and unleash with your creativity. That's amazing in the gaming industry. So I think in general our goal as storytellers is to give players more freedom and make games as immersive as possible. That's why we went for the first-person perspective in Cyberpunk, and you probably can see that it's way more cinematic, but at the same time we want the full freedom of exploring the world. So the dream at a certain moment is, of course, to be as close to reality as possible, but still telling a story. So it doesn't mean that you can do everything, because certain things just don't make sense. So we'll not add gameplay mechanics to things that don't make sense. Yeah. It is at the end of the day a game, so it should be fun for you. It should leave something memorable in your heart and in your head. That's what we believe in. It's I really don't like meaningless entertainment or something I watch and then I'm like 2 weeks later, what was that?
Yeah.
What was the title? What was it about?
I see. Okay, I think that we are in a really weird transition phase right now. There's this new console generation that is waiting for us. We have streaming, digital is becoming more and more relevant. How do you perceive this development in the gaming industry?
I think look what happened, for example, with mobile. Yeah, and it is just getting games to more people out there. And if you're talking about the big AAA games like ours, okay, it doesn't make, like, technically it is possible somehow, I don't know, streaming to a mobile, but it makes no sense. The interface, the whole experience is not what we intended it to be. So I think it wouldn't make that much sense, at least for today. But it's getting more people into gaming. So when I started the company in '94, gaming was a thing for freaks, hardcore, guys eating pizzas alone at home and drinking Coke, all this stuff.
Nerd.
Super nerdy thing, super niche thing. And right now, everybody's playing games. So streaming, I think, can take it to the next level. Having said that, it usually takes time. So it's not always, and the next generation, and then, these platforms think they will also put streaming in one way or another. So I'm not saying, hey, everybody will be playing games through streaming, but maybe some people will, and it will add, millions of gamers.
Yeah.
And that's great for companies like ours, because then we have more possibilities to put the game in front of them, even if they cannot afford a new console or a high-end PC. So exciting times.
All right, we heard a lot of buzzwords, streaming, we have new console generations, and one buzzword that is really present the last couple of weeks and months is crunch. And it's getting more important with every new story is emerging. You took an interesting direction. You reached out to new journalists and told them that you want to tell that your devs don't have to crunch, and you want that your devs have the feeling that they can go home at 6. So my question is, why do you think that it was necessary to take that kind of approach to speak with journalists about that topic unconventionally open?
I think we as a company, we generally do our best to be open. Of course, we are not telling everyone what we are planning in 5 years, because that's not about it. But we are trying to make it a great working place, and we're trying to be fair to people. Having said that, we'll still ask people to stay later if we need to, especially towards the end of the game. But if some don't want to, that's perfectly fine. And that's pretty much what we said. Of course, like sharing part of the company profit and paying for overtime. What is not a common practice in, I don't know, for example, US. So we want to put it out there, and of course, we got a lot of criticism that we could do more and whatnot. Also, quite some praise, but that's who we are, and ultimately, what is the most important? We actually had this conversation internally a few days ago. What is our value as a company? We just have some computers, which are getting old day by day and losing their value. We are in an office, which is nice, and then we have people in their brains and their hearts, and that's the value. Right. So if we won't try to do as good as we can for them, it all makes no sense.
Sure.
And both on a human level, because I like people to be proud that they are working at CD Projekt GOG, and not to be a torment for them, and also the business level. Like if they are more happy, they'll make better games, and these are their games, not mine. I'm not a coder, I'm not a graphic artist.
Yeah. So how did you devs perceive that statement, especially with in that time? I assume that you're in constant dialogue with that regarding that topic.
It's we always have. First of all, it was done internally. We also said on the record that by going on the public record, we just want to enforce it. So I think it always requires an explanation, but how we'll finish the game, how we'll go on and on. So I think, it is never, I think it's never like, hey, it's done. We can always do better.
Yeah. All right. So next question. How do you feel about that kind of stories? If you're hearing, okay, new studio, new people who are burning out and stuff like that, do you think that this will be forever a part of that kind of industry?
I don't know. It's it's really hard to say, and it's really easy to say and comment on things from the outside, but you really have to see what's happening inside. So hard to comment, because it's very general, and maybe they were sprinting towards something that was important, was a do or die for them. So.
All right. So during my preparations, I've noticed that you spent some time in China.
Yeah, I did.
Can you tell us about that time a little bit?
Yeah. So I have a passion for learning foreign languages.
Yeah.
And actually, I embarked on a journey of trying to learn Chinese. Actually, I spent totally a year in China.
Yeah.
6 months first in Taipei, and after some time, I took a sabbatical in Shanghai, and at the same time in Shanghai, I started our local office. So, great time, and I learned a lot. And I also learned that although I got to an intermediate, that unless I'll decide to live in this country for 2 years, I'll never get fluent. What was a very humbling experience for me, I have to say. I was trying to brute force it. At some point, I had 6 hours a day of classes, and I still wasn't able to crack 7. But it's, I'm getting older as well. The brain is not as plastic as it used to be.
All right. The reason why I'm asking this, it is pretty obvious that a lot of companies are trying, a lot of gaming companies are trying to break into the Chinese market. How would you describe CDPR's efforts to break into or to reach a new audience with the Chinese market?
I think the Chinese market is very tempting because of the scale. And it's also challenging because it is different, and if you just want to access it Poles want to access the German market and US market, there's a huge language barrier, as well as all the medias are different. So pretty much you don't have any Western standards. You don't have YouTube, you have Yoko, and so on and on and on. You don't have Twitch, you have Bilibili. Some of them are it's funny because when our Chinese team is explaining, so I don't know, this platform, it's these two Western platforms bound together, but with a live chat and something else. So they're trying to take things and work on them. and then release a local version. So it's like an island, like a different country. Having said that, when we're talking to gamers are very much the same. And in the last years, you could see that they are developing a very, very strong flavor for Western games. We as a company, I think, what we've achieved is we've managed to release Gwent fully, with full license, with the publishing. It's easier because it's a card game. Witcher 3 was relocalized to simplified Chinese, and that was great. We see great sales and a lot of fun. So I think what always interests me to build fan base and to understand the fan base. And yeah, I probably cannot say why Chinese gamers like Witcher, but maybe because it's a good game. So and it's a great story that is universal. So that's always very motivating for me, and I'm really very pleased to see that even in China, where they have the culture is different, the habits is different, and the gameplay habits are different. They really enjoy playing games like ours.
Cool. We have talked a lot about the past, about the present, but how would you like to see CDPR in the future?
I mean, I obviously would love to see Cyberpunk being a success, and with success, I mean, having a lot of gamers enjoying the game, and after finishing it, having something for them, their personal story, their personal feeling, their personal interpretation, which I hope will be relatable to who they are and how they feel. I cannot go too far because I would have to spoil the game, but yeah. And of course, there'll be gamers who just shoot through the game, and that's perfectly fine. But there is more to it. We have a few layers over there. So I would like us to grow and be able to do more. But I think right now, all hands on board for Cyberpunk. That's also, I think, who we are. Right now we've reached over. We just exceeded 1,000 people. The team. All together with GOG, with the publishing part, and big part of being development, obviously. I still think it's I think we are sort of manageable size, and when we have a game like Cyberpunk, we really put everything into it. So of course the Gwent team is working on Gwent, but besides, all hands on board.
All right, Marcin. For that, I wish you all the best for the future. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being open about all that kind of stuff. And wish you all the best for the future, man.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Alright, das war unser Interview zu Cyberpunk mit Marcin Iwiński from CD Projekt Red. Was it good?
Yeah. Keep on trying.
Alright, thank you very much. Das war's von uns. Jetzt geht's direkt weiter mit weiterem interessanten Programm. Ich glaube Borderlands 3 und danach gibt's vieles mehr und ich glaube schaltet zu Nintendo. Es geht hier Schlag auf Schlag. Ich bin super gespannt. Wir sehen uns auf jeden Fall gleich wieder, spätestens heute Abend zum Game Talk. In diesem Sinne viel Spaß und bis bald hier auf der Gamescom 2019.